first speaker tonight, Jim Hobart.
When I started my photography company, I took pictures of buildings. Architecture, it's safe. Buildings don't need reassurance. Buildings don't need to be told how pretty they are. Buildings don't have unexpected flare-ups of acne. Buildings don't need any help from you, and they sit there while you set your settings and take your time to get things right. Even expensive buildings with moving parts are a lot easier to photograph than people. People are terrifying. However, a few years ago, a good friend of mine named Mark Collins offered me the opportunity to share his studio with him. And if you're a photographer and you have access to a photo studio, you better learn how to take pictures of people. So I bit the bullet and I said, how can I get myself better at this difficult task? And so I set up an event and I called it First Friday Photos. And that meant that once a month, people came into my studio. I had no idea who was coming in advance, and I had every age and size and color and background. And I had to make them feel comfortable, I had to make them look good, and I had to make the experience fun for them. And so I basically forced myself to practice every month. And so for a while we just did headshots. And then we said, well, let's up the ante a little bit. And we started to look at some of the masters and reverse engineer how they did photography. We played with different lighting setups. We played with different backgrounds. We experimented. We kind of got out of our comfort zone a little bit. So over time, things began to change. We got more adventurous. May the 4th, we did this. We started playing with things, and as we did it, every time we took a little bit of a chance, the people of Orlando rewarded us. They came out more and more. They started showing up. They started calling in advance and saying, hey, what's next month's event? I want to bring my family. These good friends of mine came out on Christmas. These are dozens of silver snowflakes hung from the ceiling by fishing line, which created a three-dimensional effect, so we got into some more interesting stuff. And what we started to realize is that as this progressed, over 4 years and 48 First Friday Photos, we started to develop a little bit of a following, and we got some regular attendance. And people started saying, I want to do that for I want a new Facebook profile photo. And so we started to realize that this thing was beginning to take on a life of its own. We started to get our regulars coming, my good friends Marissa Bell and Jeremy here. And we started to realize that, hey, this is kind of, this is starting to become a real thing. We developed even more complex and intricate backgrounds, and every time we did, the people of Orlando said, we love what you're doing, we want to be a part of this, we want to share it with you. This was a 1970s era overhead projector, creating the light, and we gave people pieces of cardboard and said, cut out something and project it. And every time the subjects stepped up and showed us their creativity and their heart and their spirit, and the response was amazing. So things started to change. By the way, as you've seen on the poster, people love dressing up as robots, as children, Eddie. And there doesn't seem to be any upper age limit to that need. So we had a line out the door when we did Orlando IX. But things began to change, and we started to realize that we've got this monthly event going. We could do some good with this. So instead of it just being, hey, let Jim practice photography, it became, hey, why don't we bring people together for a cause? And so we started to collaborate with other photographers and collaborate with other companies, and we started to see if we could do a little bit of good. And so these events began to morph into a much more than just a let's have a drink and hang out with some friends and take some pictures, and it became much more about we've got a responsibility to use this power that we've got here to make some change. And the power of social media means that when this event happens, it goes crazy. Another change happened when Hillary created this chalkboard background with all the downtown neighborhoods written on it in various different scripts. We found that there was a huge demand and a hunger for cool Orlando stuff that people could say, I'm proud to be from Orlando. Here's the late, great Colleen Burns and Andy, and of course, who could miss Brendan, in front of the Orlando downtown neighborhood map. This was the original fundraiser for the homelessness, and it generated an enormous amount of energy, and again, reinforced that idea that let's be proud of our town, right? We worked with Kay Rollins and Orlando City Soccer to do a project at the stadium, and people were overwhelming. We took our portable background with us, and they held up cardboard signs that said "Rethink Homelessness," and we hashtagged it, and it went crazy and generated a huge amount of money. This year we took another leap forward. Amazing Billy Maines was there for that. And we raised money and awareness for the Zebra Coalition in the first of its kind, a real Orlando Loves, Local Love Night, we called it. And this was a purpose-built event for fundraising, and it combined all of these things. Over the summertime, my beautiful bride and her two boyfriends there, we raised money for homelessness, and again, we created a backdrop, and the people just came out and supported it, and were fantastic. And then just a few weeks ago, we created a third one, and this was for fleet farming over at East End Market. And here's the owners of Maxine's on Shine and the Orlando City Soccer Club. And again, we have been overwhelmed by the way people of Orlando just came out. And the plans for 2018 are amazing, so stay tuned for that. But what we discovered is that in our attempt as my attempt to find the best in Orlando's people, what turned out is that Orlando's people brought out the best in us. And so thank you to everybody who let me experiment on you. It's been an interesting journey. Thank you.